All right, we're continuing the Sikha of the Rebbe in Parshat Zachor, that's the Shabbos, reminding us of that we're supposed to fight against Amalek. That's what we're talking about here. It's a very, very important topic because that's one of the first things Mashiach is going to do. He's going to fight the battles of God. He's going to also destroy Amalek. Amalek also means doubt. Same gematria, numerical value. Safek is the same numerical value as Amalek. So we have to destroy it. So there shouldn't be any doubts about God. Here we have a very interesting haftorah. The haftorah of this week. That's why it's commemorating the fact that it's Parshat Zachor. It is relevant to what we're doing next week. Remembering Amalek. Let me get this page over here. We go. Oh. So we had an interesting story. The story is about King Saul, Shaul HaMelech. King Saul was a tremendously holy person, amazingly gifted, a warrior, a leader. He had all of the qualities of a king, and he was a king, and he was chosen to be king. He was chosen to be king, and he would have stayed king. He would have remained to be king, but he made a mistake. And his big mistake is, they said two mistakes, but the big mistake that he made was that he did what a king is supposed to do. He fought against Amalek, and he destroyed them all, right? This nation of Amalek. It's like a one nation of Hitlers. Every man, woman, and child in this nation of Amalek is a big, and old, a young Hitler. That given the chance, he will kill all of the Jews and everybody else as far as he can. I mean, Hitler killed like 50 million people. Only like 6 million of them were Jews. The vast majority killed other people. That's just a sort of average estimate. They don't even know. And that's just the people he actually killed. How many people he maimed, how many people he destroyed psychologically. Incredible. They say he killed like 27 million Russians alone. Just Russians alone he killed. So this is all this. So he killed them all. I'm sorry, King Saul killed them all, except for the king. He left the king, King Agag, he left him alive as a sign of victory. He wanted to bring him back to show the victory. What's good if he just kills him? He's just another body in the field. He's going to bring him back in a cage, and everybody's going to see the ultimate humiliation and defeat of Amalek. This is much better, so he thought. And in a way, he was right. I mean, according to his thought, he was a great holy person. He did it in order to serve God, but he was wrong because he was supposed to go against his logic and do only what God said, even though it made no sense, and it was against even his own nature. And not only that, he deserved it. He fought a battle. Those battles were like face-to-face swords. You could get cut up. You had to face the enemy. You couldn't stand far away and just shoot. You had to, and you could also there were also had bows and arrows. You could be hit from nowhere. But he went into the war, into the battle, and he fought. So he deserves a little bit. Let him come back with the king, at least a sign of glory, and kill him afterwards. Oh no, King Samuel, the prophet, came and said, "Wow, you did not do what God wanted. God doesn't like you anymore. That's it. You're finished." He says, "What's wrong?" "Well, what did I do wrong?" He said, "Listen, you were I did it for the sake of God. I did it." He said, "You went according to your own understanding, and sometimes it's good to go according to your understanding, but here not. Here not. You were supposed to. Your own understanding meant that you didn't do what God said, and that's what's called Kabbalat Ol. Remember, that's what we learned about in this Kabbalat Ol, accepting the yoke of God, making God a king in a situation where it means that you have to negate your own desire and your own understanding for God. That's what a king is. That's what it means to make him a king, not to make him a friend or an advisor or a wise man. A king is someone who says things to do that are against your understanding. Or if Kabbalah Soul, that's called accepting the yoke. By this it says, where is it? In the Zohar. Let's see where it says. In the Zohar, Chilek Aleph. It says, Da Tra de Allah. This is the gate, this is the door to the upper worlds. Self-sacrifice. Now, self-sacrifice means that you do what's right and you have no expectation of any benefit whatsoever. It means you sacrifice yourself, you sacrifice your hopes, you sacrifice everything. It's called total. You just do what God wants, and that's it. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be good. It's going to be bad. I hope it'll be good. But that's not the reason I'm doing. Right? I'm doing in order because I have to do what God says. That's like we said in Purim, right? The Jews said, I'm not going to say that I'm not Jewish. It meant you're going to get killed. Okay, listen, I want to live. There's no doubt about it. But I'm not going to go against what God says. Well, you want to die? Of course not. I don't want to die. So then say you're not a Jew. No, I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to deny my Judaism. But you're going to die. Oh, I don't want to die. You don't want to die? Of course not. So then deny your Judaism. No, I'm not going to do that. So it doesn't make any sense. It's nonsensical. Right? And the essence of his soul, his understanding, his heart, he wants to live, but something deeper, above understanding, above the soul. It's somewhere essential. He can't go against his Judaism. Well, this is good if somebody's pointing a gun at your head, so you're put on the spot. But what about just day-to-day living, Thus is their Torah. This is the door to the upper worlds, it says, is self-sacrifice. You're opening yourself up. You're opening the door, right? You're opening the door. Sometimes what is the door? Sometimes the door is yourself, your own self. That's what's closing you from godliness. Venice felt Kabbalah soul, if it's lacking for a person, this accepting of the yoke. And by the way, this is a thing that's done in a happy way. It's like suddenly there's no worries. You're not thinking about the future. You're not burdened by all this selfishness. You're doing what God wants. This in a way is the happiest thing you can have. That's why Purim is such a happy holiday. As man done, nitkan kli. If a person has not got this, what's called self-sacrifice, kabbalat ol, accepting the yoke, then you're not a vessel for godliness, to holiness. When it's ken and darfa, and therefore it can come out all sorts of bad things. Was darfor, which therefore is durach dem, by means Shaul. That's what it says, that King Saul, halach achriyatam, he went after his own logic, holy logic. Unit takev ge harget, and he didn't immediately kill Agag. Is a rois kikumen. From this came Haman of Russia. Said, like we talked about last time, that he left this Agag alive for one night in a cage. Somehow or other, this Agag got a hold of a lady, a servant or something, cleaning lady. He made her pregnant, and from this eventually came out Haman to destroy the Jews. V'asad gebrach dem gezerah lahashmid larog labed. God forbid, it should never be such a thing. Haya lo tiyeh, chas v'shalom, the Jews, to destroy all the Jews. Farnichten, Rahman Islam, to do away with, to erase the whole idea of Judaism and Jews and Judaism. Durch them, by means of this, was Yidden Zainen Farstanen mit a Mesirus Nefesh, that the fact that Jews stood in a self-sacrifice, which is above logic, was therefore Viren Eden in them Gansen Megillah. Therefore, the Jews in the whole Megillah are called Yehudim. The first time Jews, where did the word Jew come from, by the way? Jews. When the Jews started to be called Jews, right? Jews means Yehudim. How exactly it came into be with a J, I don't really know. I guess like Jose and Jose, I don't really know how. Anyway, a Jew is called a Yehudi. That's what it is in Hebrew also. That's the word Jew. When was the first time a Jews were called Jews, Yehudim? Was in the Megillah. Kamaim Razal, call a kofar v'avodah zorah. Anyone who denies idolatry is called a Jew. Now, what is idolatry? Idolatry, I mean, in its ultimate physical form, is idolatry is simply you make a statue and you bow down to a statue, or you think about a person or something, you pray to a person, you bow down to a person. That's called idolatry. Idolatry. Having someone help you, going to a doctor or something, asking a doctor to help you, that's not idolatry, right? That's not idolatry. Asking a holy tzaddik for a blessing, the Jewish people going to Moses asking him for a blessing, that's not idolatry. Just help. To go something that's going against the Torah, to worship something that's telling you to do things against the Torah, that's called idolatry. Basically, the main thing is selfishness. Idolatry is basically worshiping yourself. In other words, you want to receive something. A Jew that's willing to forego everything for the Creator, he's willing to kofir, to deny any idolatry, any selfishness, that's called a Yehudi. That's really what the essence of what a Jew is. They, Zainen, they are Geshtanen mit Hoda. They were totally surrendered, ubital, and given over to God. That's what Hoda means, Yehudi. This is what brought the salvation in Purim. So it's like the opposite of what King Saul did. Now, what King Saul did was certainly not in any way to be translated as idolatry, right? Not exactly right. Because the essence of idolatry is relying on yourself. And eventually a person that starts thinking too much about himself, so he's willing to do anything if it benefits him, right? He'll bow down to idols to make money. He'll bow down to idols to get the position, to get away from problems. He'll bow down to idols. And eventually he'll bow down to idols, to save his life or anything. He'll bow down to idols. And thus is the Sheikhus from Prate Haftorah. This is the connection, but the details of this Haftorah, Parshat Zachor, with Purim. The Chet from Shaul, the sin of King Saul, is given miut b'kabbalat ol. He didn't have enough of this accepting of the yoke. Mitzad deroif can veren sof and atinas makom so agag. Because of this small, how do you say, little lacuna, this little hole in his total devotion to the Creator of the universe, that he said, I'm going to do things in my own way, that because of this came Agag. A very innocent thing that he did. He didn't do anything. Obviously, it wasn't disgusting, it wasn't wrong. He didn't make any declarations against God. But because of this little, very fine fault, eventually came a tremendous fault. It's like a person, getting on a train, in the train station, and the train, he wants to go to, Chicago. And he didn't notice that he was going to a train that didn't go exactly to Chicago. It goes to Philadelphia, right? So, he's traveling sort of in the same direction, but little by little, it sort of starts separating. And all of a sudden, whoop, he finds himself in a totally different place. It's the same thing. It can be that by a Jew, that he starts to make a little bit of sort of a reckoning with the world, and eventually, whoop, he becomes very, very far. Okay, now, listen, this is not a permanent thing. It says in the end, every Jew is going to come back to the station. They're all going to come back or they're all going to, get to the proper destination. All of them. That's what Mashiach is going to do. He's going to bring even the furthest Jews, the ones that are cast away in the faraway places, they're all going to come back. So we're not talking about, there's going to be the day of judgment is arriving and etc. Biz and atinas makom to gezeres haman. And if a person starts off a little bit of mistake, so eventually there can be common Haman of Russia that wants to destroy all the Jews. Undurach Kabbalas Ol, by means of accepting the yoke and Mesiras Nefesh and self-sacrifice, which is above understanding, namely doing what King Saul, what the prophet Shmuel said, Samuel, it's better to listen to God than to bring beautiful sacrifices. And to follow what God says is better than fat rams. Hot men menatzeach given Klippus Amalek. Through this, you could defeat Klippus Amalek in spirituality. And as soon as a person starts making a little bit of sort of concessions and leniencies and this, eventually it goes far away. Was das hat sich ausgedrückt euch in Gashmis, which finally it came out physically. She is given the harog b'sonehem, that in the end the Jews destroyed their enemies. Men had geharget b'nei Amalek. In the time of Esther, the permission was given to kill the people of Amalek. Achashverosh, who is a metaphor for God in this case. Und durch them, by means of this, is meant pater gemen from Gezeas Haman. By means of this, they were exempt from the decree of Haman. Lehudi Moisa or v'simcha v'sasam v'yakor. It did away with all doubts and problems. Purim. No, there's one more. Huh? One more. 1 minute. Yes, there's one more. Very good. One more paragraph. According to this, that man euch verstehen. Okay, so let's just make a little a summary of what the Rebbe is saying over here. He's saying a very deep thing. He's saying a very, very deep and apparently a very difficult thing to do. But because God helps us, so it's easy. How is it easy? So first of all, what is the Rebbe requesting from us? He's requesting, first of all, you have to know what you're supposed to do. You have to know what is demanded from, what God wants from us. That's the idea of learning Torah, having a rabbi, having a teacher, asking questions, finding out what God wants. Then after you find out what God wants, then you have to start to appreciate God a little bit. You have to appreciate, that's one of the things God wants, is you should appreciate him. You should try to understand what God is. That's the idea of learning Chassidut, the greatness of God, the oneness of God, the goodness of God, the power of God, how God creates the worlds, how God creates evil, why he creates evil, how we have power to do what the commandments are for, what the Jews are for, or eventually the non-Jews are for, how everyone can serve God, everybody has their own, eventually the world will be, to understand these ideas of God. Wonderful, that's all in your head. Then you have to take it to your heart. You have to get really serious about this and say, hey, it means I've got to really, change my life. And I can do it. In fact, that's why I was created. That's why I was created. The other things that I do, these are very nice. But the reason that I was created was to serve my creator. God is creating me every moment, every instant. That's what I mean, learning about what God is. He's creating me. So I should be able to serve God all the time. Okay, so that's pretty easy. As soon as you start to do it, you find that it's not easy. And all of a sudden, in general, it's no problem. But then there's the specific things that happen, every moment there's a little bit of a different challenge, and some days are good and some days are not, and then you have different mood changes, and sometimes things are disappointing, you're a little depressed, a little bit lazy, a little bit angry, a little bit lustful, a little bit this. And then you have bad friends, and you have bad people, and you have next door neighbors, and there's the government, and there's the corona, and all these confusions are going all around you. What's supposed to be? Says, 1 second, you knew what you were supposed to do. You have a good idea. Let's make a reset, right? Go back and understand what you're supposed to do. And of course, God helps. We have prayer. You can pray to God, please, God, help me. God helps. There's no doubt about it. But still, the main work is on us. The point is, what is the work? Sometimes a person comes to a situation where it's clear to him what he's supposed to do, and it's equally clear to him that he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it. He's tired, he's lazy, he's miserable, he's this, right? I know what I'm supposed to do, but leave me alone, right? I'm going to do whatever I want. It says this is exactly what King Saul did. King Saul, as holy and great as he was, he knew what he was supposed to do, but he made up his own mind. In this case, he did something very nice. He brought the king back alive and brought all these sheep to make sacrifices. But because he depended on himself, and so therefore there became like two things. There's God and there's me. It's not one anymore. This very small, who are we to say something, in any way negative or how do you say, to find any sort of fault in King Saul? It was so tremendously holy. But that's what the Rebbe is saying. The Rebbe is saying his fault was so tremendously small. I understand there was this tremendous tragedy when the Explorer or something, it came back. They shot it up to the outer space, and it came back. There was this Israeli guy, Elon Rimon, and the whole thing disintegrated when it was coming down. And it was because of one little bolt. There was one little tiny bolt or something that went wrong, and this destroyed the whole project. Was like $1 billion, something crazy, and the whole thing was because of one little bolt. And we can see that very clearly in the world of emails and the computers, right? You write somebody's address, you leave out one little period. It doesn't get to the person. You can't figure out what's going wrong, right? You write a tremendous, amazing thesis that's going to save all of mankind, and you send it into, to the university, but you forget to put one little dot, one little letter. That's it. Never gets there, right? You worked for years on this thing. It's a piece of genius, but there's one little dot missing. And here the Rebbe is saying the same thing, right? We know what we have to do. God doesn't come to us with impossible tasks. He's not going to come to us with a task like King Saul had. King Saul had his tasks and we have ours. But when we do have the task, we have to understand that sometimes what God wants, we have to close our eyes, forget about the future, forget about the past, forget about worries, and just do what we know is right. According to this, Vetman oich verstehen, we can also understand with the mitzvah of Purim, the commandments of Purim, was is mehr from alle andere inyani Purim, verbunden with the ganzen Tag from Purim is Yemei, they are Mishta. It says Mishta. These are days of drinking. A person has to get drunk on Purim until he doesn't know the difference between Haman is cursed and Mordechai is blessed. That's Purim. All the other holidays, you should know that the court, the high court, they used to send out, the local courts used to send out people to see that because in the holidays people weren't working and they were sitting around and drinking, that people wouldn't go overboard with drinking. They wouldn't get overboard with drinking. Also, men and women were sitting together. In Purim, they didn't send anybody around. Purim, there was no worry. In fact, even more, in Purim, a person is supposed to get drunk. Okay, everybody according to his own way, but you're supposed to get. As the avoda from Surmera, this thing of cursing Haman, it says you're supposed to get so drunk you don't know the difference between Haman is cursed and Mordechai is good. You don't know the difference between turning from bad and doing good. Zolz, how can that possibly be? What type of a holiday is that? It's a Jewish holiday. You don't know the difference between bad and good. You don't know the difference between Haman is a bad guy and Mordechai is a good guy. You're supposed to get so drunk. Zol zayin in often from adalu yadar. It has to be in a way you don't know. Hecher from tamvadas. That's what it means. It has to be above your understanding. The ganzer Nes from Purim, the whole miracle of Purim, came b'zechuta mesirut nefesh, because the Jews said, "I'm not going to go against God." That's all. But 1 second. Listen to this. Let's think about it for 1 second. God is in Purim. God was not so good, right? If you went with God, it meant that you were going to get killed. You were going to get killed. A person that said, "I am a Jew, I am going with God," then he had to fight against 500 people when that day came. It was dangerous. So God is pretty, it's pretty demanding. On the other hand, Haman was not such a bad guy. Haman said, just leave your Judaism, say you're not a Jew, and I'll leave you alone, right? So Haman was a nice guy. He was giving us a choice. Take it or leave it. If you deny your Judaism, then you're one of us. You'll live, right? No problem. But God was saying, Mordechai was saying, no, you can't deny your Judaism. You can't deny your Judaism. So a person might think, hey, you know what? Mordechai is okay. He's not so bad. I'm sorry, Haman is okay. He's not so bad. Haman's giving us a choice. Mordechai is not giving us a choice. We have to stay that we're Jews. It's a dangerous thing. A person might think that way. Says the Rebbe, that's the whole thing of Purim. People didn't think. They said, I know what God wants. God wants us not to deny our Judaism. We're not denying it. We might get killed. That's God's business. It's not our business. My business is I'm not denying my Judaism. In other words, they serve God above understanding. The Reber, therefore, the service has to be adalo yada. It says that you're supposed to be so drunk that you don't know the difference. It says you're not supposed to get so drunk that you become disgusting. But nevertheless, it's supposed to be so drunk you don't know the difference. What does it mean? Don't know the difference. It's supposed to be higher. That you're willing to do what God says no matter what. Here we have in communist Russia. If you would just leave your Judaism and become a communist, then they would leave you alone for a while anyway. But to be a Jew is the most dangerous thing in the world. So it's the obvious choice is to be a communist. Go according to logic. What are you going to go according to you're going to go according with the Lubavitcher Rebbe? A lot of his Hasidim got killed. And the communists, Jews decided to be communists. They got raised up to high places. Until afterwards, he made a purge, killed everyone. So therefore, if you go according to your logic, then be a communist. Haman is a good guy. Emuna peshuta un mesiras nefesh l'mayla mitam b'das. This is simple faith and self-sacrifice, which is above all logic. Well, from this comes the simple faith that we have the whole entire year. It says the Jews as oichti and yanim from hasaga, that even things which are normal understanding, zolzan geboint, it should be built. You have to use your understanding, but it has to be built on a foundation from faith in God, because you cannot understand God. And even though there is a commandment to try, and it's a commandment to love God, so we have to understand something about God as much as possible. And the whole essence of Chabad Hasidus is just understanding as much as possible about God. But that's Bina. Chachma is faith. To know that your understanding and your whole life has to be based on a connection to God, which is above understanding. Like it says, Tov tam v'das lamdeni, kiba mitzvasecha amanti. Like King David said, teach me good logic and understanding, because in your commandments I believed. Belief, faith. That's the essence, above all understanding. And even though that Haman might seem to be a good guy, and Mordechai seems to be some bad guy, Mordechai is too demanding, right? And the communists seem to be good guys, and religious Jews seem to be bad guys, right? Because they're so demanding and so dangerous. But nevertheless, I'm going to do what God wants. Oich der tov tam v'das kumt. Also, this good understanding comes from emunah, faith. And it's built on that, and that's the essence of Judaism, and that's the happiness of Purim, and that's with that power we can defeat this being stiff-necked. A Jew, we can defeat any powers of darkness and evil and depression and death and confusion, and make the world into a beautiful, healthy place. Okay, we can say the Yom Yom if you want to. Where's the Yom? Here it is, Yom Yom. Today is what? Hey, Adar. Without any doubt, or even it's the slightest hint of a doubt, every place where we go, everything is in order to purify the earth and the air around us with the letters of Torah and prayer. Every Jew is an emissary, handpicked emissary of God. Shaluchi de Rahmanan. Each according to how God has decreed with Hashgacha Elyana, with his upper direction, where he's going to be and when he's going to be. No one can be exempt from this holy work that has been put on our shoulders to make the world into a perfect place. Have a good day, everyone, with Mashiach now. God willing, at 3:00, we're continuing in Chumash. We'll learn about the drapes around the tabernacle, the courtyard. Hope to see you at 3:00.